think there will be some white paper that will end up at the president's desk for action. So food insecurity, of course, as we said, is vital, not only to the economic aspect of it, but to human health. To human health. What ends on the table can sometimes take someone to the hospital. And we said a penny wise is a pound foolish. Could you put on the slide, please? And so that is why in the US, where I've spent most of my youthful years, it is part of the government's policy to make sure that when foods end up on the table, it is nutritive and it's also safe for human consumption. Because if something happens and someone ends up in the hospital, they'll point the finger to the government. And then the government will then go after that company or the farmer or whoever has used that food. So that's why it's very important. And that is why these good agricultural practices is quite important. As I said, farm operation, food processing, and human health. They are all intertwined. Because what the farmer produces can either affect that human health in terms of course, he has all the qualities that we're looking for, the nutrition qualities, all the nutrients, none of us. As all my previous speakers have said, it leads to human health. But it can also have the adverse effect that you get something that there was something there that you didn't see, and that actually affected your health and erosion to the hospital. And it can also affect the quality of the food product because the person that is processing that food is not actually the person who harvested the crops and then packaged it in boxes and give it to the processing plant. So you see how all of them tie together because they all affect each other. And so that is the reason why in the US, I said I'm grateful to my adult life, the good agricultural practices are vital to economic activities in the US. As of course, what is it? We call it GAP, Good Agricultural Practices. It's a collection of principles to apply for on-farm production and post-harvest processes, resulting in safe and healthy food and non-agricultural products, while taking into account economic, social, and environmental sustainability. That is. And of course, why is it benefit? Because it ensures food quality and safety improvement, facilitating regional and international market access. That is exactly what it is. And so we have to make sure that what happened in the US should also be happening in Nigeria and in the rest of the African continent. Because, as one of my faculty once asked, why is a country or a continent blessed with abundant land, fertile land, yet they cannot feed their own people? How do you answer such a question? Although yes, maintaining, abiding to these principles, GAP, sometimes of course can be costly, or their main challenges because of record keeping, increase in production costs, with testing, the headache of testing, sometimes education, inadequate access to information and support services. Those challenges, that's why you're here. If Nigeria can adopt those principles in the United States, it's not because they have the smartest
let's take the laptop there.
Men and women in the United
How long
States
is your
because it's a policy that the government says this policy must be adopted. And if all of us agree, then I think it's important for us to make sure that we can what all of us think that is for the vital interest. Not only, even in the most advanced countries like the United States.
Can I send you?
Foodborne illness is
just like this. Let me.
Okay, because if I eat something and I have a running stomach,
laptop. I will relocate my laptop and collect it. Okay. Just the man.
And that's why I'm having a running stomach. They don't know that there's a bacteria in there that accidentally was not well cooked, was not well washed, and so that's what irritated my stomach. And sometimes it can be viral and you end up in the hospital. So that is the reason why it's a no-nonsense issue that we all make sure that it does not happen, and we have to do all the securities. So you see all those, because again, because more and more people are becoming, of course, immunocompressed, and so if they are compressed immune systems, then they are more vulnerable to some of these illnesses because of the weak immune system. And then, of course, it decreases productivity, increases economic losses, even to the farmers, because if you fall sick and you don't go to work, that is a decrease in your own productivity and also a decrease in the productivity of that company because you call in sick, just because you ate something and you end up being in the hospital. Of course, in the US, you are liable. You are liable if, of course, there's an outbreak. So many people ended up in the hospital. And they trace back that lettuce, that onions, that tomatoes, that these folks ate came directly from your farm or came from this processing plant. Your business may be shut down because maybe it could be by accident that you are liable to all those losses that either the government now have to investigate, and those people who are in the hospital, you have to account for their hospital bills. So those are things that, yes, if someone suffers, your company, your industry may be shut down. Sometimes, of course, your farm maybe say, well, buyers are saying, no, we're not going to more buy stuff from your farm because this incident was traced right to your farm. You see how loss of income from that farm. And so, of course, these are things that we don't see with our naked eyes. We don't see these pathogens. We don't see them until I take you to microbiology lab. Then I say, look, I scrape your finger and I put it in a petri dish. Look at what is growing. That's when you see that hand washing and some of those basic things, we call it basic, but they can be so important to human life and human health. So these are, of course, these are the sources of all these pathogens that can affect the food supply chain. They all come from, of course, we know we have our poultry. Sometimes we grow our vegetables, we have poultry farm together. Sometimes we have our cattle, we have our goats, and all those things mixed together, of course, they are the vectors, they are the carriers of those pathogens. And then they end up in some of the produce. And mostly some of these produce that we don't cook. Our carrots, our vegetables that we don't cook, we eat them raw. They are the potential problems that can end up taking someone to the hospital. So this is why good agricultural practices are very, very important for a healthy economy like Nigeria. A healthy economy where we have more educated workforce that can make sure that this becomes a priority, not because it just affected those in Oyo State. No, we don't have to worry about it. But what happened in Oyo State can happen right here in Abuja in the next few minutes. So those are things that we have to look at the country as a whole, as our own concern, our own problems, And so we put our heads together to address this common problem because it is our own people that are suffering. Of course, one of the major management practices, water. Water carries one of these pathogens. Water carries it. And they are not tested. Our farmers are not educated enough to know that this water that they're using to wash those crops need to be tested. It is our responsibility as academic institutions to set little testing labs where farmers can come to test their water. It is free of these pathogens, or it's free of some chemicals that can be harmful to human health. That is something that is being done in the US. It can be done right here in Nigeria. So please, we have to start thinking about all those things to help our country advance, because without that, we cannot sell our produce in the international market. It will not be accepted. Because when these folks come, I'm sorry I just have to say this. I went in Cameroon one time, and one minister invited me to his house. And we were chatting, eating and chatting, and then he said, "Oh, why don't you come back home?" I asked him, I said, "Come back to do what?" So we need a lot of good guys to back home and contribute. I said, "I have a good job there. A lot of folks here in Cameroon don't have a job. Why don't you give them the job?" I said, "I will be so unfair to my own children to bring them from the US to come here and see what they are saying here." He said, "Like what?" I said, "Look at where those women are selling food. Look at what the places where they are selling food. There's no bathroom. There's nothing for them to wash their hands after bathroom and so forth. What do you think when you see those things as a minister? What do you think when you sit with Bobby and you're discussing the future of this country?" He paused and looked at me like this. I said, "Yes, I have to tell you. These are things." It's all bad, you know, some of this here." I said, "No. When the white folks come in, I'm sorry they say the white guy in it, they pat on the back. So you do a good job. But when they get us there, they say those guys, don't worry about them, they will never take care of themselves." So these are things that, please, let's not ignore these things. These things affect all of us. It make all of us look bad, because these are things that we can address them. We have the resources and we can address them. Water help. Someone is sick. Please, he doesn't need to be touching food that humans consume. Right there, there are restaurants that will go there and eat. If a restaurant manager knows that someone is sick, let that one go home. Because if that person is sick and touching food, and that food can be eaten by somebody else, that person also ends up getting sick. This is how it is spread, and that can be prevented. And these are what we call good agricultural practices. So all these issues, of course, we know that manure, sanitary issues at the farm. We know that most of our farmers don't have toilets in their farms. We know that. How do they wash their hands? We know that. It doesn't happen. But these are things that are well enforced in the United States, because they know that if one American gets sick, it costs the US government money. So prevention for them is better than cure. And that is the reason why these policies are enforced, and to make sure that if you don't have a portable toilet, you must have a portable toilet in your farm or close by where you can wash hands before you process food. These are things that we can do. We cannot say it is impossible. Simple things like chlorination of water. Farmers should at least, there could be a policy where farmers should at least have a well in their farms. University institutions have researchers who are on water management. They can help chlorinate those water once in a while. And that is to save the whole society. Help your neighbor as you want yourself to be helped. So this is a community effort that I believe that academic institutions should be at the lead to lead this effort to make sure that the next century is not the same like the few centuries that we've lost. Post-harvest, as most of our speakers have said, is where we are more vulnerable because food is being carried, is being transported along the supply chain. That is where all those different people are handling the food, and then of course they are transmitting bacteria that of course they themselves do not know that whatever they do carries bacteria along the way. So these are areas where of course, and these are opportunities to create jobs because we have a few graduates who microbiology and they are saying something that the food that ends on the dinner table is safe for human consumption because it can help to save one life. Of course, sanitation is always the key. Are those facilities safe? Do we have inspectors in our communities? Because like in the US, there is food inspectors, sanitary inspectors who goes to restaurants unannounced because their job is to make sure they work for the interest of the society, to save the society from harmful bacteria that we all carry without knowing that we are carrying them. Things happen, but make every effort to try to prevent it. And that is why most sources of these pathogens come from humans. We carry them without knowing that we are carrying pathogens. Our animals carry them, our water carries them, and so it is our effort to make sure that we develop good agricultural practices that we can implement right here in Nigeria. It's not like one size fits all. I'm not saying that I just copy what US does and just implement it here. You have all the experts, you have all the brain here in this room that you can sit down and develop a model that you can hand it to the minister and say, look, this is what we've come up with. We hope that this can be implemented to save future Nigerians, to save Nigerians today and tomorrow from some of these problems that can be addressed. You say harvesting in the field, just the way that farmers harvest crops in the field are potential carriers of bacteria that end up on the dinner table. So those are things where, of course, you have all those tests where you can make sure that farmers are constantly educated. There are some extension services that are provided to make sure that farmers know what they are supposed to do because you show the direct link to the farmer center. If your customer gets sick because he ate your produce, best interest to make sure that you do some of these things that we are saying so that tomorrow your farmer doesn't get sick. Your customer doesn't get sick. So these things can be done. It's not like farmers say, no, I don't want to do it, but if you educate them enough and show them the direct link to the consumer and to their own revenue, their own income, they will wake up and say, no, it is for my own best interest to make sure that I secure the safety of my consumer. Of course, we know that it is like fungi, all those bacteria that are carrying over the years, but we continue to make sure that when handling food, all those things that can potentially spread bacteria, let's find a way that, as I said, we can educate the farmers because that is the starting point of the food supply chain. Planting, harvesting, transportation to the processing plant, or sometimes directly to the market, as we say in most of our local markets, directly to the market. And how are these produce handled? How are they washed or processed before they take them to the market? So that is how this produce carry. So handling is always the key. And then of course, if an American or British comes here and see how you transport the food, hell no, there's no way that they will accept those produce in the U.S. market. It will not happen. It's not because of racism, it's not because of anything, it's because they're trying to protect their own citizens from getting sick from some of these foodborne pathogens that you and I will not see. And there are technology today that can help us to package food right there in Nigeria without costing a lot of money. There are new technologies. Why can't we invest in them? Why can't we educate our farmers? This is a new way. The old way, yes, but this is a new way. And they are willing, they will be more than willing to adopt it. Because, like I always tell when I speak somewhere, I say, look, all human beings are the same, irrespective of where they are. Irrespective of where they are. They will behave the way that the government allows them to behave. If the government says today, don't do this, we do this is a fine, people will say, hell no, I'm not going to pay a fine because of this. I will rather behave. So this is something that I believe that if we implement it right here in Nigeria, farmers are going to adopt any good agricultural practices that we put on their table and that they have to. So this kind of way of transporting food will of course it makes you look at as a human being on top of food that they're loading, and then you'll be sleeping on there, he's sweating on top of that food. Look, these are things that we can laugh, it's funny. I remember when I brought my kids I took them to Cameroon, they were about 7 years old, and they saw those kind of things. They turned around and asked me, Daddy, what the heck is going on? Are they okay? I said, yes, they're okay. Don't get used to it. So these are things that is funny, but it can lead to other problems. And of course, it prevents us from selling, because the good news is that the market for African food products in the US is booming. Why do I say that? Because of people like me, diasporans, who are there in their millions, and they still eat food that they grew up eating. And so the market is there. And so if you can process this, meet all the good agricultural practices and good manufacturing practices that the US wants you to implement, the market is there. It will create jobs here right at home. And of course, it will improve the income of our own people right here in Nigeria. So of course, the benefit of good agricultural practice, the benefits are direct benefits. Direct benefit that is sustain agriculture, make notable, and of course, international, make access to international market, and make it access, yes. Because you just need to study what US wants. How does it want us to implement this? That's all. I'm not saying there's a one-size-fits-all. US policy may be different from that of Europeans or from Canada. You look at that and say, okay, we can do this. And we set up little companies that is basically their job to make sure that they address some of these issues that US has concerned, and the market will be there. The market is there and it's growing in thousands and millions. Of course, we will have to improve safety and quality of food and agricultural products, and of course, it helps us again create employment opportunities, because as I said, along the supply chain, you need microbiologists, you need chemists, you need food processors, you need all those, and we are producing them here from Nigerian institutions who can do that job, but just need people who can assemble them and make sure that they can be doing this job along the road. Of course, it then of course can raise family income, it can of course facilitate global market access, as I said. Of course, what is good manufacturing practices. You're making something. You're making something, you're altering that product. You're altering it. Sometimes you're adding something there to preserve it, to increase the shelf life of that product. That's what you do. You're altering it from the natural state and you're putting some preservative to increase the shelf life. But the practices that you do, is it safe? Have you tested them to make sure that it doesn't have any harmful effect when humans consume it? The question is, maybe not. So these are things that you also have to check to make sure that is it in compliance with what those international markets like the US are looking for, and I believe you can do it. Of course, as I said, it's consistent manufacture and control to the quality standards appropriate to their intended use. That is yes. The intended use, of course, that this is a product that is going to improve protein when people eat. But you process this. You add some few preservatives to increase the shelf life. But whatever you added there, did it actually make that stable, or did it kind of do some kind of what we call adoration? Those are things that you need those chemists, you need those microbiologists to look at it to make sure that yes, whatever you added did not alter the actual natural ingredients in that food. That is all what sometimes those markets are looking for. Some assurance that whatever you did not actually alter this product. And of course, as I said, these things are not rocket science. They are basic things. But the fact that they're basic, why don't we do it? Why? It's just because we've been doing things the old way, and nobody tells us that what we're doing is wrong. Nobody keep on doing it. And this is the 21st century. If there's a policy that enforces good agricultural practices, good manufacturing practices, people will sit up and say, no, this is a new way, and we all have to abide by it. Of course, programming, washing hands, making sure there's employee hygiene, making sure that, yes, you don't have that direct contact with your hand and food, that you have gloves. Those things are not expensive anymore. They are very cheap. And so people have to make sure they use them. Of course, sometimes just little things like the US government want that before you put that you are processed, you just need to put that nutrition factor. That's all it matters. That because our people are becoming more health conscious, and they say a direct link between human health and disease and management of disease, and so they want that every food that has been processed should have that nutrition factor. It can be done, and it should be done, because that's what the market is asking for, and you have to respond to the market demand. So these are things that I believe we can do, and I strongly believe that it can be done. Because if you do not, if you cut corners, you do not comply with these good manufacturing practices, those are yes. Those are the consequences. And in the US, there's no, it's not like you're speeding and your guy gets a ticket. There's no way you call your guy, you want to put something in that, your guy says, okay. Then you don't put your money. It's not happening. Yes. They either tell you go to court and make a case, or you go directly where the fine is and you pay your fine. So those things, because those consequences are severe, and that is the reason why they are all in compliance with the good agricultural practices that have been make sure it's available through any means that they are supposed to get access to, whether it's through internet, whether it's through all their little organizations like cooperative, they have access to it, so that you cannot say, no, I don't know, or I never heard of it, or I never heard of this. No, there is nothing like that because you have access to it, because the consequences are always very, very severe. So these are all the consequences that they can just shut down your business. Yes. If you Google right now about football illness in the US, you see thousands of information about it. And a lot of those companies have been shut down just because they went back, invested, and found that they did not comply with those who manufacture practices. And that is how people got sick and they shut down. So these things happen, and we have to make sure we. So, of course, why? We said that farmers should adopt techniques which satisfy that to have access to market. Of course, because they can also, because it's input. If a farmer puts a naira in October in the processing of something, packaging, let me just put a simple packaging. He can add that to the price of that product. And consumers are willing to buy. Because it guarantees them that because the way it's been packaged, it is safe, my children can eat this without any problem. We all the same. We all look at things the same.
DJ,
but because the white man looks at it differently, or the black man looks at it differently. We're all conscious about our health, and this has been reported that this has a direct link to the health problems that we are facing. We are always
can you check whether if his phone is filled up?
And I thought,
let me get some percentage.
So those things are very important. So if this is the best interest, sometimes of course, for because I get brothers. There's no reason. I'm 62 years old. I used to get out of school, elementary school, go home.
Tell him that my streaming device is going on.
Put in water, cold water, and drink. That guy was processed by one mama somewhere and sold it to another mama. And then that man had it in the market. And the dust in the market is very on that guy. I'm 60 years old. And today we still have those around the market. My brothers, nobody is going to come from home and tell us what to do. It's us that have to go deep down ourselves and say, come on, 20% we still taxing this. Because some of us are becoming middle class, upper class. So whatever happens in that upper class is no longer. It is our problem. Because I believe if the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Health can come together and say, in the next 5 years, all the food, I'm just taking an example of Ghana. Ghana is exposed to dust and all these other things that can compromise the quality of Ghana. And says, in the next 5 years, we make sure that no one should be selling Ghana that is exposed to dust, handling, and so forth. And we give a place. And universities now put more incubator centers where more and that can process the kind content and they have them package it and put nice label on it and they take it to the market. It can't be done because It's a safety issue. It's an issue that relates to everyone of us. Because one person gets sick, we should all feel concerned. So these are things that I believe that at the end of tomorrow, we'll write down white paper. Of course, universities and corporate can come together because it's a business venture. These are little businesses that can be done. That they can come together and say, okay, well, we can make sure in our own little community, we're going to set this cooperative, we're going to have this little packaging, and then of course we make sure that all our folks who are processing this, they come there, charge a small fee, the package and stuff, and before they take it back. It still can be done because it's not about international market, but also domestic market. Domestic market, because all of us are consumers, and we should be very concerned about it. So of course, quality control should be.
The thing where they kill them for years, no fake killers here.
Quality assurance, yes, it is.
They will fry a car, put it open so more than people will come and buy it.
You always, yes. You always want to document that yes, we did all this
if fake killers for we pass them.
You see the way they look at you, but you don't go to
and of course, as I said, if you want to access US market,
what he said is not a very difficult something.
You know why?
But if you want to do it now, people will fight you.
You know why it's important in the US? If I don't buy a banana, before I buy it, there's a food where it's and if I ate that banana and I have some running stuff like that, and another person ate that banana when I was running stuff, only that barcode tells them which farm it comes from. And they go right there to see how that banana packaging was handled. And it was something we would trace it. And we say, hey, this is what you need, these are the gaps. And we'll help you address it. But if you found out that it was through your own carelessness, it will be shut down. So you see, these are basic things. It can be done so that you can have access.
Well, if you come that here, come back and made Uncle Nick was like a should
in my university, we have what we call an food business innovation, where farmers, folks have bright ideas on developing some products, and they just want a small startup, or they want a facility where they can come and do it. And we all have them do it. My department will have them do the nutrition pipeline, that's what we do for them. And other departments have them, and then of course the business department also have them in calculating their business expense and all those kind of stuff. So at the end of the day, we are helping these folks to get their food in the market. That is what institutions are meant for. To look at problems within their community and see how they too can contribute in addressing those problems. It's not only to train students, it's also address problems. And so if Delaware State University can set these and is running this company folks, I strongly believe that the University of Calabar can do it. I strongly believe that the University of Abuja can do it. Because there are lecturers there, there are scientists there with the same knowledge as those in the university. All what you need to do is to push your politicians, say we need some support here financially so that they can make that case. With the federal government say, look, there are bright ideas here which is for the interest of our community,
Like
and so it's for our best interest for us to invest in these kind of ideas so that we can.
Do you know why they are very comfortable? What the university paid them.
So this, my brothers and
can keep
sisters,
them and their family.
we can do it.
Are you getting me? So that
Thank you very much, Professor. He delivered with class.